Welcome to the Childcare Genius Podcast, the world's leading authority on childcare marketing, mindset, expansion, and profitability. Each episode will feature interviews with the brightest minds in the childcare industry to guide you into becoming a smarter business leader. Our hosts have opened 10 schools while raising 5 children. They are certified business coaches and are the top-selling childcare business book authors of all time. This episode is sponsored by Childcare Genius Marketing. Let Childcare Genius Marketing help you get fully enrolled and fully staffed. Visit childcaregenius.com for more details. Let's welcome to the Childcare Genius Podcast our hosts, Brian and Carol Duprey.
Hello, welcome to the Childcare Genius Podcast.
Hi, we're your hosts, Brian and Carol Duprey. Hope you're having a great, amazing day today. We're so excited to be with you, and thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like our podcast and leave a review. We'd love you to leave a review of our podcast because it helps other people to find us. Don't forget to like, review, and subscribe. So anyway, we got a great episode lined up for you today. We're interviewing a mother-daughter team who work on ownership of multiple childcare centers in the Seattle, Washington area. We've got several clients that we work with in Seattle area. And we just happened to have been visited their schools in, about 2 or 3 months ago. We were in Seattle visiting their schools and helping them improve their processes. They have a great story. And interesting how they got into the business. So I love that part of the story.
Yeah.
And they also talk about some of the unique challenges of working together with family, as we know firsthand. And if you are listening to this and you work with a family member, or you're considering working with a family member, there are challenges. And they do go into some of those challenges in there. So we look forward to sharing this episode with you.
Let's get Rose and Jenn on the line. Hi, Rose and Jenn. Welcome to the Childcare Genius Podcast. How are you today?
Hi, guys.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome
Doing
to
well.
Calling all the way from Seattle today. We're on the opposite sides of the coast, Maine and Washington. Our left top, our right top, and we couldn't be any farther away. And actually, our weather's the same. Raining here, raining there, right?
Yes, it is.
What's the weather like in Seattle, the end of the year time frame? It rains a lot there, right?
Absolutely, it does. We always hope for snow, but it never normally happens. We just have a lot of rain.
If we do get snow, everybody's super excited because it only lasts for sometimes the morning, and then the rain makes it go away.
Ours the opposite. Sometimes we hope for rain and we just never comes. It just snows. In November it snows, and then we don't see our grass until May. And imagine 5 months without seeing grass, and there's several feet of snow piled up, and our lake's 3 feet of ice on it. We drive cars on it.
This year it didn't rain. It snowed so early, though.
Yeah, it's a little later this year. Little later this year. So, all right. So we were out in Seattle visiting you guys 2 months ago, I believe, 2 or 3 months ago. And when I was out there, I was like, this is a unique story. You have a mother-daughter childcare team. And we've coached actually a few mother-daughter teams. We coached the mother-son team. We've coached sisters team, sister-in-law's team. It's an interesting dynamic you have working together. You got a great relationship. So I said, let's get them on because we know there are other people out there.
Yeah.
We wanted to hear your story. So can you tell our audience a little bit about each of you, like what your background is, what you did before you got in the childcare business? I'll start with you, Rose. Like, what's your background? How'd you get in this crazy business?
Well, I joined the Air Force and did so well on my ASVAB test that my recruiter told me that I could pretty much go into any field I wanted to. So I, being a 17-year-old graduate going, I have no idea what I want to do with my life. So he said, okay, how about we put you in computer repair? And I said, okay. So I went to basic training and then headed off to my tech school, which was in Biloxi, Mississippi. It was supposed to be a 9-month-long program, wound up being 12 months. I had some little hiccups along the way. Finally stumbled my way through school. Then they asked me where I'd like to go for my first duty assignment. And of course, the computer field that I picked at the time was only CONUS, and that means only the continuous United States. So that kind of blew my dream of going overseas. So they said, well, Alaska's on that list. And I said, well, sure, that's for the closest I'm going to get to go overseas. So I'll go to Alaska. Well, come to find out that that was not typically a duty station that very first time airmen right out of school were allowed to go to. There were tech sergeants that had been in the military for 15, 20 years trying to get to Alaska and were not able to get there. So off to Alaska I went. Met my husband. We got married a very short time. I think we knew each other like 6 months. And I struggled the whole time while I was there at my job because just trying to learn and understand computers. Well, then I got pregnant with my first child, who happens to be Jenn. And when she was born, I went, this is what I like doing. And so I stayed in for the first 5 months of her life. And then because I took her to work with me, I worked nights. And so I brought her in. Well, by this time she's starting to move around and crawl, and you can't really have a baby in a top secret place. So they said, you got to find some place for her to go. Well, back in 1980, there were really no such thing as licensed childcare on the military bases. Their childcare in the 70s and 80s was atrocious before they decided that they needed to do something about that. So pretty much if you were a mom in the military, you found somebody to watch your kids and hope that they did a good job. So I got out on a hardship discharge, and my husband's from Washington, and I'm actually from the desert, Southwest. I was born in Albuquerque. I was raised in the Four Corners area of the United States, so I'm from the Southwest. So the environments are 180 degrees opposite. So when I got up here, I remember the very first time my husband picked me up from McCord Air Force Base, and I was driving along and I was looking at the trees, and I had never in my life seen trees that tall, that close together, and I was just mesmerized. So when it came time to get out, we moved down here to Washington from Alaska. And my husband had always said, well, we can go back down to New Mexico where you're from. I said, nope, I like it up here. So it did take me a long time to get used to the rain. However, I did. And then I knew at one point in time I had to go back to work. So Jenn was about a year old. And again, not finding licensed care, just finding somebody who said that they could watch my baby while I went to work. Ran across some pretty serious situations where it was like, nope, I can't leave her in that place. And then I found a wonderful woman who was a licensed provider who showed me what good quality childcare could be like. And that was about 82, 83. And so Jenn was there. And she thrived, did really good. And then I got pregnant with my second daughter. And but my provider didn't offer infant care. So I said, well, what am I going to do about this? So I decided that I was not going to put a second child through what Jenn had gone through. So I left to come home. And when I did, about 6 families from that center came to me and said, if we heard you're going home, would you be willing to take our kids with you? And that's kind of how I got started. So then I started learning about the licensing process, and I became licensed, and I started taking classes and workshops, and I became part of the Pierce County Family Child Care Association for a long time. Then we outgrew our house, and then my husband actually found our first location, which is our Graham location. He went up to the man and knocked on the door and said, "Hey, if you ever decide to sell your house, let me know." And the guy said, "Where were you 2 years ago?" So we pretty much bought it on the spot and stayed there for quite a while. And then I had an opportunity to build from the ground up. And so we built our Ording location from the ground up. And so that's kind of where we're at and how I got into into the business. And that was my process.
Unique story. What part of Alaska were you stationed in?
We were in Fairbanks up at Eielson.
Carol's first duty station was Alaska too, so that's
Well, kind of. It was the Aleutian Islands. It's Alaska, but
Yes, it's a lot of different spots. Yeah.
yep.
Interesting story. And you, Jen, so how did she talk you into being a partner with her?
Oh goodness. Well, my story is definitely not as exciting as Rose's. No, I had my oldest son when I was 19, and I just honestly couldn't imagine leaving him at all. Even with my mom, it had, it was just, I just didn't want to leave my baby. And so I had been working at the center since I was 14. I mean, legally 14. When you're a child at an in-home, you're always working. So no, but working since I was about 14, and then just, stayed. I've worked in every position you can imagine. I've been an assistant. I've been an infant, toddler, preschool, school age, part day, full day, open, close. I have literally done everything you can in a center. And so eventually, I kind of just started helping a little bit more in the admin area, started kind of, observing how payments were coming in, or not coming in. And so I just kind of started stepping in. Rose has a huge heart, and she's amazing at that. She doesn't like to collect money from people. So, that's where I kind of stepped in and just continued on from there. So I have been in the industry for, literally one way or another since I was about 1 year old.
Yeah, kind of like our kids, kind of like born into the business.
Exactly.
You're born in and you got to die to get out.
Yep.
There is no easy way out, right, Jen? You're stuck.
No.
Can you
So,
tell
but
us?
anyway, then Jen, when we got the second location going, she really started stepping in and, helping take care of both sites. And while I was dealing with contractors and permits and stuff of that sort, she was behind the scenes helping take care of the director and helping take care of the staff. So she started learning a lot more of that admin, managing type of place. And then when we got the second location, she just really naturally stepped into that role as well.
For sure.
Can you tell us why your schools are unique?
Do you want that one, Jen, or you want me to have that one?
Oh, I don't care.
Okay.
If I was like, go ahead.
Where our first location is at, there was a little private school that my children went to, and about half of our childcare kids went there. And then the other half went to the public school. So and we had a very, very thriving before and after school program. And so all those kiddos would come in, and half of them would sit down to do their homework from the private school and the other half from the public school. And I was able to observe what the kids were learning in, let's say, a second grade private school versus a second grade public school child. And the level of academics and excellence in the private school children was, it made me cry, because I thought, young children, our little tiny humans are so smart. And as long as we give them the proper tools, they can pretty much learn anything that we give them. So the curriculum that we use now is the curriculum that was used on my own children and multiple daycare children. It's called a Becca, and it is a phonics-based program. And young children can learn to read very quickly if you give them the proper tools. So I took the Becca kindergarten program, and I thought, I wonder if I can kind of bring this down developmentally to the level of a 2 or 3 year old, and what would happen with them. So I started working with our very young children, and they picked up the concept of letters and sounds very quickly. And then I thought, well, I wonder if I go to the next step. So I started adding, a vowel and a consonant, and I would teach them what vowels and what consonants were, and they picked it up very quickly. And then as those kids wanted it, I just kept going. And I had 4-year-olds that were reading at second grade levels. So our specialty is reading. We teach very young children how to read.
That's good.
Very good.
So Jenn, you must have some obstacles working with your mom every day. What would be an obstacle having to work with so close to family members? I have to work next to Carol all day. That's a positive, but there are obstacles. So what obstacles have you faced with doing that?
So I would say for Rose and I, probably our biggest obstacle is communication. We are working on that. We are definitely getting better. It is challenging, no different than if you are working with a spouse or, a business partner. But when you have different communication styles, it is hard to learn how to communicate with the other person. And I would say another challenge that we face is that we work together, and because you run a business is always on your mind, right? So it is really hard when we're trying to be in, for example, more of a family setting, or, just kind of in outside of the business life. So in your personal life, to not talk about business. So I think that is another challenge that we do somewhat face. But yeah, I would just say communication and just making sure that our lives aren't solely revolved around the business, that we can still have a relationship as a daughter and a mother.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty cool experience having to work together. Definitely brings you closer. I know every couple that I've worked with, that's mother-daughter, mother-son, it's a unique dynamic, but usually they've worked together long before they were adults, started with kids, like our kids. They started like 4 years old. My daughter was recording commercials, and now here she is 27 or 28 now and still working for us, right? So yeah, they start them early, and they kind of bred into the business, and which is awesome.
Yep.
How has coaching helped you grow your business?
Coaching has been a game changer for us. When you guys came out to talk with us, we were at odds as to what to do with one of our centers. I wanted to keep it. I was adamant about it. She wanted to sell it. She was adamant about it. And there was no compromise. And so we would both just kind of not talk about it for the sake of getting along. And but yet, we both knew that things were kind of festering under the surface. Outside of business, Jenn and I have a very good relationship. But she has her ways of thinking, and I have my ways of thinking. So when you guys came out and you taught us the heart talk, And so we kind of practiced that a little bit. And then when we went to Jamaica and heard you talk about it a little bit more, it was like opening the flood dam. And, we still have a few things, but it's not that, because I have to be honest with you, there were times that Jenn would call me and I hung up on her. There were times that we would talk and I fired her probably 3 or 4 times in the years that she's worked for me. I think she might have quit a couple of times, who knows? Then she would call back and I would not answer, or I'd hang up on her again. And so, then we would leave each other alone for a little bit. And then when we come back to it, it just really wasn't talked about, but it was never taken care of. So since you guys came out and you've showed us those techniques, things have really gotten a lot better.
Communication is important, Rose, and thank you for sharing that. Yeah, we fired our kids a few times. They've quit along the way a few times. I think it happens in every family business relationship, but we always make up and we allow them to get out of jail free card, maybe a few of them. I think we didn't talk about earlier, but you have a unique thing at your business where one of your locations has a coffee shop attached to it. I did want to bring that up because that was always my dream, to have a childcare center with a drive-through window to serve coffee, and my workers could be like baristas at the same time. And you've actually done it with your own coffee brand. So, Jenn, where'd you get that idea? And I know it's not like a Starbucks location, but it's pretty darn cool. So share that with us, how that came about.
Yeah, so when we had the opportunity to build the Ordean location from the ground up, we just kind of started thinking about all the things that, we have looked at or seen prior to us building. I had put the Graham location through, we call it Nyack, but I think the East Coast calls it Macy. So in AYC, we had put the Graham location through the accreditation program, and we're accredited. And so we got to see so many different places. Actually went out onto our base, our military base. We got to see, the child development centers out there. And so we just had a lot of ideas in our head. And it was very great because we got the opportunity to put a lot of those ideas into the program. And one of them was the coffee shop. And we thought about that for a couple of reasons. The location is actually in a housing development. So there is supposed to be about 400 houses in there. Don't think they've quite made it that far yet, but we were like, well, hey, maybe we can not only help our families with childcare, but then they could stop and grab a cup of coffee on the way. And not only could we get families for childcare, but maybe we could get, just the people who don't want to leave the area and grab a cup of coffee. So that was one of those things that we thought, well, why not? Let's give it a go.
Awesome, too. I thought it was such a great idea.
Yeah. So
thank you for sharing that. And you mentioned, Rose, the conference in Jamaica. So what, you guys came to that conference, you brought your husbands with you. What did you get out of that conference, Rose? Besides the heart talk, I mean, did you like the conference, first of all? What did you like about it?
We absolutely loved the conference. It was amazing. The speakers were wonderful. My husband and Jenn's husband, my son-in-law, actually got their notebooks out and were taking notes. Now, these two men don't write notes. Neither one of them really ever wanted to have a whole lot to do with the business, because all they ever saw was Jenn and I and troubles. So they said, we don't want anything to do with this. When we got down there, they started catching the vision too, and they started seeing what Liberty could become. And they both got super excited about it. And they both have committed to certain aspects of helping us grow things. And so, yeah, I would have to say more than just a business conference. Brian and Carol, you guys brought my family back together. So for that, I'm forever grateful. Thank you.
Appreciate that. And yeah, it is a good conference. And when the open line of communication, when you're all communicating on the same page, and if you're listening to this and you're like, boy, I would love for my husband to know what I do or know how hard my job is, have them come to this conference and have them sit in, because it's an easy day. We're done at 1 o'clock. It's just 3.5 hours. So, guys can sit through that. And usually my session on real estate or my session on eight-figure net worth, that usually gets the men into the room. When I talk about the money that could be made and also the real estate investment, that's usually a good hook to get them in the room. Ladies, if you want to do that, or men to get your wives, we have the opposite in there too as well. But we know how hard it is to run a childcare center. Sometimes the spouses think it's pretty easy and they don't know the challenges behind it. And they also don't realize how much money could be made if you do it correctly, which once they get excited, then they think they invented the childcare business. Then they want to start changing the rules and doing it their way, right?
Yes, they do. And I would just like to, echo what Rose said too. I appreciate the fact that the spouses were welcome in the room, because I think that doesn't always happen at a lot of other programs that are out there. And if you don't have, even if your spouse or your whoever is not actually involved in the business, you still do need that support. So I appreciate that was an option and an opportunity for my dad and my husband. So
yeah, we think that's important to have the spouses there. And if you look at our conference, it's like 40% men in our conference, which is the highest percentage of men at any child care conference in the country. Because a lot of people do it together. We want them to learn the business together and communicate. Even if they're not 100% involved, we want them to know what the other person's doing. And we think that's important.
Absolutely.
If you had it to do all over again, what would you do differently?
How far back am I going?
One thing, Jen.
If I had it to do all over again, I would probably look at investing in more properties. We have had opportunities that I think that our mindset was a little bit more narrow on. And if I do think we should have jumped on those opportunities. So I think being ready for opportunities is something that I would change, and then being open to what those could be. So having a more open mindset on opportunities like that.
What about you, Rose?
I honestly wish that I had let go of we were working with other people, and I just kept thinking things would get better. And I know that you had approached me a few years ago, and I said, because I think I met you during COVID, and then you very graciously reached out to me, and I said I wasn't ready yet, and you didn't push the issue. You were very gentle about it, and I appreciated that. And then you would reach out again. And so if I had to do it all over again, I would have jumped on that the very first time I met you, because we would be 4 years further down the road.
I appreciate that, Rose. We enjoy working with you guys, really do. And Seattle was a nice area. We've been to it twice now, visiting clients out there. We've got several people we work with out there, and just love the area. It's so pretty out there. And we still like the East Coast. Gas is a whole lot cheaper here, so that's for sure. But it is pretty out there, and we thank you for having us and hosting us out there. And we want to thank you for taking time to share your story on the Child Good Genius podcast, because there are other people who work with family members out there who can relate to your challenge. It's not an easy story, but it's one, like I always said, after I'm gone, my kids are going to remember the time working with family. And someday, Jen, you're going to say, man, it was such a blessing working with my mom, and that's a memory. And then your kids will eventually work with you, Jen, and then that's how it usually works. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and that's a darn good thing. So thank you for taking time to come on the podcast today. Best to the husbands. We'll see you guys in Cancun soon at our next conference, and hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you so much, guys, as well.
Bye now.
Fine.
I'll just say, wow,
That was great.
that is impressive what
Very.
they've done in a short period of time. And with the right team, anybody could build that kind of structure. I mean,
Yeah.
that is huge business, huge revenues. I
Yeah.
mean, they've just have done very well. I've seen their numbers. They treat their people really well. They have a great leadership team. Extremely impressed. And Carol and I, we just can't wait to go visit their schools
Yeah.
and see what they've done out there in Nevada and in New Mexico. So if we can help you in your business, they talk about coaching, how much it's changed them. If we can help you in any way, you'd like to do a free coaching call with me. If you've never done one, if you're a center owner, go to childcaregenius.com right now. And under the coaching tabs, I'd like a free coaching call. And I'll get on a call with you. I'll give you some tips. I'll help direct you towards the right way of doing things, maybe a little bit more profitable, maybe a little less struggles. And maybe someday you could build a business like Lori and Trisha have, and have 216 employees in 2 different states and 1,000 children that you're caring for each and every day. Huge responsibility, but it goes to show you can do it with the right systems. So thank you so much for tuning in to the Child Care Genius podcast. We're so thankful that you've taken time out of your busy day to listen to us.
And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you won't miss a future episode of the Child Care Genius podcast. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Child Care Genius podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please do us a favor and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a future episode. Don't forget to visit our website at childcaregenius.com to see a list of services we offer to help grow your childcare business. Until next time, thank you for being a part of the Childcare Genius community.